the salient point, other than IIT Madras, which of course is high point of everything, where I graduated in 1993, the salient point to note is that the rest of my career has all been in the US, right? So Junglee, Amazon, Cosmics, Cambrian, the original Walmart labs were all in the US, and then I set up Walmart Labs India as well. But most of the action happened in the US. So I'm just going to and a very interesting thing happened at the end of that talk. At the end of that talk in 2013, there was a full auditorium at ICSR, and I asked the whole bunch of students. So I asked them, asked this question: how many of you want to start a company? How many of you want to become entrepreneurs? And can you guess how many hands went up in that auditorium at the time? But I know it's hard to. That's the problem. I can't get interactive. But it was two hands. Two people raised their hands in the whole ICSR auditorium, which was packed. Right. So as you can imagine, a lot has changed between 2013 and now, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this talk. Yeah, Piyush Tiwari says he raised his hand. I'm glad you're back here, Piyush. Here's the agenda that I plan to cover. So I'm going to look at how has the world changed since 2013, since I gave that talk, right? I just used that talk as kind of a pivot. How has the world changed? How has my timeline evolved since that time? And how has the world changing and my timeline? How have they interacted? So that's going to be the first part of the talk, and I'm going to end with a few snippets of advice for entrepreneurs, since I assume many of the people here in this audience want to start companies or have already started companies. So that's kind of going to be the outline of this talk. So the first kind of global tech platform was the World Wide Web, right? So that was the World Wide Web was kind of came into being in 1993, and that was the same year that I graduated from IIT Madras, and I headed to Stanford, and that was very fortuitous for my career. Because that's what led me to start my company based on the World Wide Web. So interesting, and here are some of the companies we all know, some of which are still around, and some of Yahoo, which is still not around. That was started during this period, and that were hugely impactful. The interesting thing to note here is that these companies have a worldwide user base. So when it says World Wide Web, what it really means is that it's a worldwide user base, right? But all the action in terms of the innovation and the creation of these companies was actually happening in Silicon Valley and more broadly in the US, right? So that was kind of the state of affairs. I'd say between 1993 and about 2010. That was roughly the state of affairs. All the interesting action in terms of technology was in the US, and that's why I started, my companies in the US, and pretty much most of my career was focused there. But something changed after 2010. After 2010, a set of technologies arrived, and we can sort of quibble about exactly what these technologies are, but broadly, these technologies are mobile, the adoption of smartphones, cloud, data and AI, and crypto. And maybe you can add IoT sensors to this if you want. But so basically, this kind of technology suite kind of arrived. I kind of piecemeal, but it all arrived at roughly the same time, and it became sort of the new de facto tech platform. These pieces together, and all that happened roughly around 2010. 2010 or shortly thereafter was when all these sort of events happened. And when that happened, when this new tech platform happened, it sort of enabled new things. So in particular, what it enabled was that it enabled the entrepreneurs to use this platform to go and reimagine and disrupt pretty much every industry, right? So you could reimagine, take every industry, use these technologies, deliver through the smartphone to consumers, host in the cloud, use data, AI, sometimes use crypto, and pretty much rewire and reimagine every industry in the world. So that's what this platform enabled. This loosely interconnected set of technologies enabled. right? So and when the platform first arrived around 2010, the first adopter were companies in Silicon Valley, right? And you can see that, so all these company names should be recognizable here, and there are many more, obviously, that adopted this new tech platform to take massive industries and disrupt them. Like Uber disrupted transportation, DoorDash disrupted food, Slack disrupted work, and so on, right? So effectively this looks like, and the user base, of course, is worldwide for all these companies. So the interesting question is, this looks like a rerun of the same movie from the World Wide Web era, where Silicon Valley is creating these technologies that get adopted over the world. But that's not exactly what happened. Something interesting happened, and something interesting changed. And that was that this platform was then adopted by entrepreneurs around the world, not just in Silicon Valley. And that's the huge and important change that happened between the first kind of web wave of entrepreneurship and the second wave of entrepreneurship, is that this new tech platform has now been adopted by entrepreneurs around the world. And the adoption sort of happened at different times at different places in the world, and the key limiting factor was the adoption of smartphones by the population of a country, right? Because the other technology, the other piece of the technologies, whether it's cloud or data AI or crypto, those are all open source technologies that are commoditized, and any entrepreneur in the world can adopt them whenever they want. But the key piece that had to fall in place in every particular geography was the adoption of smartphones by a significant fraction of the population. So once a significant fraction of the population in a specific geography like India adopted smartphones, that actually unlocked the power of the whole platform. And interesting. Then once the power of the platform gets unlocked, then local entrepreneurs can adopt this platform and solve local problems. Right, entrepreneurs in India can solve problems specific to India. Entrepreneurs in Indonesia can solve problems specific to Indonesia. And so on, right? And the interesting thing is that local entrepreneurs, of course, understand local problems and local needs much better than some entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, right? So so what this really enables, so it gives local entrepreneurs, this platform gives local entrepreneurs a big advantage over their competitors in Silicon Valley for the purpose of solving local problems, right? And so this sort of leads to a democratization of innovation. Is the way to think about it. It sort of took innovation, which was primarily happening in Silicon Valley until about 2010, and sort of democratized it and made it now sort of a worldwide phenomenon in many ecosystems over the world, including in China, including in India, including in Indonesia, including in the Middle East, including in Africa, including in Latin America, and so on. And so this sort of huge explosion is what we're witnessing right now. So the interesting thing about this democratization of innovation is that once you democratize innovation, you also enable companies to get started. And some of those companies, since these companies are, what these companies are doing is that they are taking massive industries in big geographies and they're completely rewiring or reimagining them. Right, so we have startups in India that are completely reimagining what education looks like Byju's. Right, we have startups in India that are completely reimagining what healthcare looks like, and what entertainment looks like, or what finance looks like, or how to serve small and medium businesses like Katabook, or how to do commerce like Amazon, Flipkart, but also like Moglix in the industrial space like Udaan and so on. How finance is done. There are many startups that are reimagining in India, but this sort of what they're really doing is that we're going to every geography, taking every massive industry, and we're completely reimagining it using this new platform. So in effect, what we're doing is we're in the process where a whole new world is being created, which I'm calling World 3.0. If you sort of think of World 1.0 as a pre-industrial era world, and World 2.0 as the industrial revolution era world, what we are really witnessing now is sort of the true recreation of the world around this new platform, as every major industry is being reimagined as never before. right? So that's the massive transformation that's really going on in the world. And when this massive transformation like this happens in the world, there's also been a lot of value creation that happens. So a lot of startups become unicorns. Now we have 33 or 42 or whatever number of unicorns in India, and so there are lots and lots of these unicorns that are being created all over the world. By the way, when I gave the talk in 2013, a unicorn was still a mythical beast, right? The word unicorn had not been, as applied to the venture ecosystem or to startups, had still not been coined at the time. So that's, since in 2013, if you look at venture ecosystems, venture ecosystem is something like Bangalore or Silicon Valley or Delhi, right? So these are all venture ecosystems. Only 4 venture ecosystems in the world had actually produced $1 billion startup or a unicorn in 2013, and these were all primarily in the US and China. So between 2013 and 2019, if you sort of fast forward to 2019, now there are 80 ecosystems all over the world that have produced unicorns, right? So what this shows is that sort of this democratization of innovation has also led to a democratization or a geographic dispersal of value creation, right? And so that's why Sam Altman at Y Combinator said that, look, there's not going to be one new next Silicon Valley. There are going to be 30 new Silicon Valleys that are going to get created around the world. There is a true sort of dispersal, geographic dispersal that's going on in terms of value creation in the world right now. And now this actually ties neatly to what I'm doing right now. So remember, I told you that I'm going to tell you what's changed in the world and what's changed in my timeline as well. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm running a venture capital firm called Rocketship. And this, what this graphic shows you is the portfolio companies, the companies that we've invested in from a venture capital firm, Rocketship. And each of these companies is a company that, just like I told you, is sort of using this new global tech platform to reimagine some big industry in some big geography. Right. So, and you can see that our portfolio is spread throughout the world. It's sort of pretty much everywhere. For example, in India, we have Moglix, which is reimagining business commerce. We have Appna, which is reimagining blue collar work. We have Khata Book, which is reimagining how to serve small and medium businesses. And we have, in Indonesia, we have Buku Warung, which is serving small and medium businesses. In Africa, we have Chipper Cash, which is reimagining how cross-border payments are done using crypto, and so on. So interestingly, so each of these companies is sort of reimagining some big piece of the economy of a major geography using this new tech ecosystem. And so that's what I've been doing since the last time I gave this talk. So the natural question to ask is, look, we have all these companies all over the world. How do we find them? Right, and so this is what we've been doing. We've also rebuilt our own venture capital firm using this new technology platform. We are a data-driven venture capital firm. We use data and AI inside our venture capital firm. What we've done is we've created a big data platform at Rocketship where we've collected together data from 27 million companies. All kinds of data about the people at the company, their apps, their websites, these news stories, social media, all kinds of things. 170 terabytes and growing. It's updated every day. And then we run machine learning models on this data to try to find interesting companies to invest in. That's how we found all those companies to invest in all over the world. Not by traveling all over the world. Clearly, we couldn't travel because of COVID, right? So we've been sitting in Silicon Valley for the last several years and investing all over the world, and that's because we find these companies entirely through our through our data and AI models. So usually, this is what we tell companies. Companies don't come and talk to us. We go and talk to companies when we find them in the data. So we've sort of inverted the VC model a little bit. And so that's how, that gives you an example of how we build our model for a company. We take all kinds of publicly available data about the company. We figure out things about the team about market, about competition, and so on. And we built a company model that tells us how interesting a company is for us to invest in. Just to round out that piece, going back to the same slide that I used when I gave this talk in 2013, now I can add one more entry for what I've been doing since then. We started Rocketship in 2015, and Rocketship, incidentally, has two other partners of mine who are also from IIT Madras. Venki Harinarayan and Sailesh Ramakrishnan are also partners with me at Rocketship, and they're both from IIT Madras as well. So we have 3 IIT Madras alums at Rocketship. So the other piece that I mentioned to you was that when I gave this talk in 2013, I asked how many people are going to start companies, and only 2 people raised their hand, including one gentleman who just responded to me early on in this talk. And so that really bothered me back in 2013, because I really wanted more students and more faculty from IIT Madras to go start companies. Because that's the way you truly change the world. So what I did was I went and I chatted with Nagaraj, Dean Nagarajan, who was then the ICSR head, and then I also spoke with Director Bhaskara Murthy, and I also spoke with a couple of my friends, Venki and Kittu, who were also IIT Madras alums, and we came together and created this thing called the IITM Entrepreneurship Fund. We endowed some funds to create the IIT Entrepreneurship Fund, and then other people put in more money as well. So this IITM Entrepreneurship Fund got started, and the purpose of the IITM Entrepreneurship Fund was to provide seed funding to startups that were created at IIT Madras to sort of encourage more entrepreneurship here. Now, I'm very, very happy. I received this report about how the IITM Entrepreneurship Fund has been doing from the ICSR team, and it looks like it's had a huge impact in sort of creating new startups from IIT. So a lot of the startups at the IITM incubation cell have received funding from this IITM Entrepreneurship Fund. I'm very, very happy about that and about the impact that it's created, including companies like Ather Energy and so on. Another aspect that I wanted to touch on is that this new crop of companies that that are using this tech platform to sort of create this disruption and create this value. They're not just making money. They're just not making money for their founders and for their employees and for their investors, right? But at the same time, they're actually having many of them having a huge positive social impact in whichever country they operate in. So I'll give you one example. This is one of our portfolio companies, a company called Appna, based in Bangalore. And what Appna does is that it's you can think of it as a LinkedIn for the blue collar workers of India, for the plumbers, the electricians, the delivery workers, and so on. This is Appna makes it possible for them to create their own virtual business card. They can upskill themselves, learn new skills, and also find jobs, right? So what Appna is doing is that it's sort of enabling these people, both from rural parts of India as well as from the slums and other economically depressed parts of India, to find jobs, right? Find good, well-paying blue-collar jobs and improve their lives, the lives of their families. And so, just to show you a sense of the scale of Appna, this chart shows you the app downloads of Appna. From January, for about the last year or so, from 2020 to 2021, and you can see that these app downloads are on a tear, and all these apps are being downloaded by blue collar workers like plumbers and electricians and delivery workers and so on, who are looking to upskill themselves and to many of them want to learn English, for example, and they want to and to connect with employers to find jobs. And to give you a sense of the impact that this company is having, when we invested in this company a year ago, they were doing 100,000 interviews a month. And interviews when they connect a blue-collar worker with a potential employer, right? They were doing 100,000 interviews a month when we invested in them about a year ago. And then within a year, they were doing 500,000 interviews a day, not a month, right? They went from 100,000 interviews a month to 500,000 interviews a day within 1 year. And now they're at 1 million interviews a day. So this is a kind of rapid scaling and huge impact that is possible when you pick an industry and disrupt it with these new technologies, completely reimagining what blue collar work looks like. Right? Even the US doesn't have a LinkedIn for blue collar workers, but India does. Right? So that's interesting. Interesting phenomenon, and in fact, Prime Minister Modi has actually lauded Appna on his national radio address, Man Ki Baat, as well. So that impact has been recognized. So Appna is just an example, but here I've picked a bunch of our other portfolio companies at Rocketship, and many of them are having positive social impact. These what is seeing up there are UN Sustainable Development Goals, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, like ending hunger and providing quality education and decent work and economic growth and so on. And many of these startups, in addition to being, making their founders rich and their investors rich, are also having huge positive social impact by furthering these UN Sustainable Development Goals. So the great thing when you start a company in this new world is that you can do well at the same time as you're doing good, right? So I think that's the most exciting thing to think of. So with that, what I'll say is, there's a new world that's being built. And it's being built by people like you, students who are students today. So you guys should just go out and reimagine the world with these new technologies, and pick pretty much any industry, completely reimagine it. Don't try to copy some model that's worked in the West or something like that. Try to do something entirely new and different that works, that is suited to the Indian conditions, and go reimagine the world using this stack of technology. So with that part, I'll end that piece right there. Now, since many of you are going to be excited and they're going to go change the world and start companies to do it, I thought I'd end by giving a few very short snippets of advice for founders. And I often pretty much get asked for advice from founders, and I've just taken the top 2 or 3 things I say and I put them in on a slide so that we can, so that I can do it very quickly. So the first thing I always tell anybody who wants to start a company is to find awesome co-founders, right? So don't ever try to do a startup alone, right? So doing a startup alone is very, very hard. It's a long and arduous journey with many ups and downs, and there'll be lots of downs to go with the ups. And if you're a single founder, you're going to get overwhelmed at some point. So all my companies that I've done, I've always done with co-founders. So I always recommend to founders who want to start companies to find awesome co-founders, and find a co-founder that you've had some working relationship with in the past, right? Rather than a brand new person that you've never interacted with. And that's because a startup is a very stressful experience, right? So you're going to get many knocks. You're going to get knocked down many times along the way. And there are going to be many high pressure, high stress situations where things will not go your way. And that's the time when people who don't perfectly have good chemistry will get into a bad situation and fall apart, right? So in fact, the founder chemistry is super duper important, and it's one of the leading causes of startup mortality that is hugely underrated. I've seen many promising companies just implode because the founders cannot get along. Right. So at some point, and you don't know this when you're starting a company, you know this 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, and then you wasted those 2 or 3 years. So and you wasted your investors' money as well. So and as an investor, it's very, very hard as well to judge when whether the founders have good chemistry or not. It's one of the most difficult things to find out. So one way to mitigate this risk is to start the company with somebody you worked with in the past in some high stress situation, so that you know that you can sort of get along with each other under stress. For example, if there are some students that you've been in the past and you've worked on projects with them under high pressure and you've delivered, you work late nights, pull all-nighters together, all that is bonding, and it shows that you can work together. I think those are the kind of founders that work rather than somebody you just met, right? Just because they have a good resume or something like that. Also, make sure that you allocate founders' equity in a fair manner. Don't if you do some crazy things by with founders equity, with some people having way more than others and so on, it might look good at the beginning, but down the line that's going to blow up in your face. So don't do that, right? So just and have a good vesting schedule to protect all the founders right from the beginning. Now, how do you find a great idea to start a company? Well, so clearly you want to disrupt some big industry using this technology. But how do you find one, right? And for this, I very highly recommend that you read Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1. It's a great book to read. It's a very short book. And one of the key things that he says in that book is, look, a great idea is sort of at the intersection of these two circles, right? An idea that is a good idea, but that seems like a terrible idea, right? Initially, it'll seem like most people you tell it to will just laugh it out of the room, right? They'll just say this will never work. So you want to, but in reality, it's a good idea, but it just seems like a bad idea, right? So that's where the sweet spot is. That's where you find great companies, and you have to persevere until you find one of those things. And you always do. And when you do this, you'll ensure that you are the first person doing that, as opposed to the 10th company doing the same thing. Right, so that's an important thing as well. Don't be the 10th company doing something. Try to be the first company doing something. That's hugely valuable as well. I'm going to end with one last point, which is there are broadly two classes of companies that in the tech ecosystem, right? The optimizers and the disruptors. The optimizers are companies like Stripe and Slack and Snowflake and Fractal.ai in India, for example. What these companies do is that they use technology, but they sell a solution to other companies. And sort of they optimize the business processes of lots of companies, right? So they are the optimizers. The disruptors are companies that don't sell technology to others. They use the technology to go disrupt a big industry themselves. They go directly to consumer. They go directly to disrupt a big industry. Now, when you're starting a company, there's often a choice. Do I want to optimize by selling technology to others? Most SaaS companies are optimizers, right? They're selling like Freshworks as an optimizer. They're selling software to other people, whereas disruptors are companies that change ecosystems. Now, you have to make a decision when you're starting a company. Do I want to be an optimizer or do I want to be a disruptor? This is a very difficult decision to change. You have to make it upfront, and you have to sort of go with it. Now, being an disruptor is much more risky. Okay, the chances of failure are much higher. If you're a disruption is risky. Optimization is easier because you're selling software. You can sort of pivot your way to find the right thing to sell. Eventually, you can get it right. Risk reward sort of is correlated. Disruptive companies may end up being much more valuable typically than companies that end up being optimized. Obviously, there are exceptions. In India, the one thing I would say specifically to the Indian ecosystem, based on my observation, is that if you're starting a SaaS company, if you're an optimizer, my observation is the Indian market is too small to be a SaaS company selling to only Indian, only to the market in India. So if you're going to start a SaaS company selling software to other companies or SaaS services to other companies, you should target a global market from day one. You cannot target an Indian market. Whereas if you're a disruptor, you can target, I would very highly recommend, there are huge markets in India that can be disrupted today. You don't have to look outside of India for your market. So as an optimizer, look for a global market. As a disruptor, look for a local India market. So with that, I'm going to end my talk right there. There are a few other things, but I think those were the key points, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Anand. And I'll now hand it over to the student coordinators to coordinate the Q&A session. Over to you, Kimaya.
Hello, sir. This is Kimaya from Alumni Relations Cell.
Hi, Kimaya.
So we'll get started with the Q&A. The first question we have is, while investing in a startup, how much weight do you put into the background of the founders, like an interview, and into the raw idea and the problem being solved?
It's a good question. So it depends on the stage of the company, to be honest, right? So when the earlier the stage, the more the background of the founders is what matters, and the further you go, the more other things matter. So if I'm talking to a company that's still a PowerPoint presentation, right? It's sort of it's a concept. And all I have is a founder and idea. I will, the background of the founders and the team background and how the chemistry is and all these things are the things that I look for the most. Those are the things that matter, because the idea is going to change. The first thing often doesn't work, right? So things are going to evolve. So I'm actually really backing the team. There's a broad space that they're interested in, which that space should be interesting to me. And the team should be an exciting team, right? So that's what really matters if it's very early. Whereas if I go further along, let us say the company, they've actually sort of built a first version of the product. They've gotten product market fit, and now they are looking to scale. At that point, that's what matters more. The product market fit and the scaling potential get more weight at that point. Now, the startup's always scaling and it's growing rapidly. At that point, what really matters is the growth rate. Right, way more than the backgrounds of the founders. So it depends on what stage I'm investing. At Rocketship, we typically are a Series A investor. So we are not investing like at the earliest stage typically. So we have a balanced view. We sort of are looking for both at the idea and at the founders.
Okay. The next question is, what does it really take, or what do we need to do to have a startup that does not have an existing marketplace?
Can you please repeat the question, Kimaya?
What does it really take, or what do we need to do to have a startup that does not have an existing marketplace?
Yeah, so an existing, I assume what the questionnaire, what the question really asks for is, there is not, I'm not sort of copying some other market that's addressing some market. I'm creating a new market. So what does it really take to do that? But, it takes a lot of imagination. It takes a lot of imagination, and it takes often what it takes is a personal experience of the problem. Okay, I'll give you two examples, right? Clearly, the company that created the whole thing is Facebook, right? And so Mark Zuckerberg created that from personal experience, and then it became a big thing. Another company that we have in our is in our portfolio is this company called Animal. Animal is a company based in Delhi. So what they do is they're a company that serve the dairy farmers of India. Okay, so dairy farmers of India, one of the things that dairy farmers have to do is that periodically they have to buy dairy cattle, they have to buy dairy cows to replenish their stock periodically, and they have to do this every year. Now, the only way they've been doing this is by going to fairs and so on and buying these dairy cattle, and that's a very inefficient process, very hard to do during COVID as well. So the founder in this case, Neetu, is the daughter of a dairy farmer. So she had personal experience of the problem, and then she went to IIT Delhi, and she worked for some other startup. And then she created a problem, the startup, to solve her own dad's problem of how do I buy and sell dairy cattle, right? So having a personal experience of the problem is also a good thing typically.
Okay. So moving on to the next question. How do you know the company should go for bootstrapping or seed funding?
That's a good question. I think for most startups, there is a lot of, I would highly encourage any startup today to join an incubator like the IITM incubator, or there are so many. And with these incubators will typically give you some small amount of funding to get started as well. Either from the IIT Entrepreneurship Fund or some other other incubators have their own thing. As a startup today, you don't really have to start completely from zero. You can get a little bit of seed funding to get going, right? So you don't have, and it's also quite cheap these days to get to that first point where you can build a first prototype. The founders can do it themselves on AWS or something like that. It doesn't cost that much, right? So I think that would be the route that I would suggest to most students is to join an incubator, use the resources there, and get started with that. With the funding that you provide, get some kind of small prototype, and then go raise seed funding.
Okay, sir. Also, what is the business model of Rocketship? This is the next question.
The business model of Rocketship is the same as the business model of any venture capital firm. We invest in startups, and then the startups grow in value and exit. And when they exit, we make a multiple of our investment. That's the business model of any venture capital firm. We are just another venture capital firm. We just happen to use technology to find the companies we invest in.
Okay, sir. So there is a question about Appna. Appna is a known unicorn. So what is the revenue model of Appna?
That's a good question. I think revenue model for many of these companies is a work in progress, right? So they're iterating and figuring out revenue model. So that's one of the risks. That's one of the interesting phenomena about many companies, right? That when you solve a very important problem and you get this kind of hyper growth in these companies, you as an entrepreneur, you should not and you must not focus on how to make money at that point. You should focus on how can I get as many people using the product as possible. How do I onboard as many users as possible and get to massive scale as quickly as possible. This is what Reid Hoffman, in his book, he calls it blitz scaling. You want to scale at blitz speed. And the reason to do this is that you don't want any other competitor entering the space, right? You want to become so big that no competitor will even think about entering that space, right? So you want to scale at blitz speed, and then you can think about, once you're at big scale, you can always think about ways of making money. Pretty much every big company has done this. Facebook did this. Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn did this. So every company does this, and so Appna is in that is going through the same process where they're in the blitz scaling mode right now. But they have some ideas on how to make money. So it's not that dissimilar from LinkedIn. LinkedIn makes its revenue from employers. And so that's probably what Appna will end up doing.
Okay, another question about Appna. Why does it not offer its website in regional languages?
I think they do. I do. As far as I know, because a lot of these people, in the blue collar workers, they actually use their use their dialects and so on. So I believe they do. I may be mistaken, or it may be just a feature that's in the pipeline. Right? It may be one of those things.
Okay, sir. The next question is, what are the steps for a beginner to start their own startup?
So, as I said, the first step is to find a co-founder. Okay, so go find somebody that you can get along with, or maybe even 2 or 3 people, and then get together and spend some time thinking about what some idea that the space that appeals to you, some idea that appeals to you, that you find. And usually this will be suggested to you by your own experience, right? Some problem that you or somebody had, that looks interesting, right? So it's always it's always better to solve a problem that somebody in the team has some personal experience of, rather than trying to solve some abstract problem in the business world that you don't know what's going on there, right? So when we did Jungly, it was a personal problem that we had that we wanted to solve, and that became the company eventually. And so similar thing with Cosmic. So I think it's always better to start with the problem that you have personal experience of among the founding team, and then sort of think about how to solve that, and then see if I solve this problem, will lots of other people have the same problem, and if so, is there a way to deliver that solution to them? And then you can think about how to make money. That should be the last thing, right? What you have to first think about is this an important problem to solve? Will I benefit a lot of people? Will a lot of people use it, right? And then you can worry about how to make money.
Okay. The next one is, what do you do when you have an idea but don't have the technical skills to execute the idea? What should be your approach? Like maybe you can get as far as building the software stack that you want, but how do you build the product? Because learning everything by yourself does not seem feasible. Like
no. This is exactly the point I was making. Please don't ever be a single founder. If you're a founder by yourself, I think your chances of success are very, very small. I would say that's why I gave you the first piece of advice I gave you is find co-founder or co-founders, right? You have to find people who complement your skills. If you are the AI whiz, the AI guru who can solve that AI problem, find a co-founder who's really good at building the app and find another co-founder who's really good at doing the marketing, right? So don't find if you can probably find them among your batchmates. So I think that's what I would do. Don't try to do everything yourself. It doesn't work.
Okay, sir. The next question is, apart from money, what are the important points to keep in mind while selecting an angel or a micro venture capital?
So with angels, I think at an early stage, the money is very important. Okay, so to take the money, right? So that's super important. A lot of people will tell you, look, that we are going to add value, we're going to help you, and so on. And in some cases they do, and most cases people don't have as much time as they think they're going to have to help you. So that's going to be the reality, right? People will help you as much as you bug them, right? So for help. So I would look for good. I think it's, at least in India right now, I think it's always great to take some money from people who have started successful companies in the past, right? Lots of entrepreneurs from the first generation companies, including me, but also people who've started other companies in India are investing in startups. I think those are excellent investors to bring on board, because they've started companies in India. They know, they've gone through the thing. They can give you advice on the nitty-gritty of certain things. You can always reach out to them, and they've gone through that process recently. So I think those make great early investors.
The next one is, can you share an incident as the founder when you were in a difficult situation with respect to Rocketship or building any of your startup? How do you cope with it?
Sure. Yeah, so I can give you, let's use Cosmix, which was my second company. At Cosmix, which was my second company, Venki and I, we wanted to, this was an early company, AI company, right? This was back in 2006. This was early, this was AI before deep learning was invented. We wanted to use AI to reinvent search engines, right? We thought, look, Google is good, but Google's not doing a great job for certain kinds of searches, and we want to build a better search engine using AI that will give better results than Google for many searches. And we actually built this search engine. Now the problem we had was that we built the product and it was really good, but it's very hard to get people to use it because everybody is used to using Google, right? So people end up going to Google and they don't come to Cosmix. You might have better results for some searches. You might have not so good results for some searches. So people, end up going to Google a lot. So it turned out that building a better product is not necessarily all it takes to succeed. You also sometimes have to find a way to get people to use your product. So what we realized is that building a search engine with that technology was probably the wrong approach. So that we were in a very difficult situation. We already spent 2 or 3 years doing this. So what we did two things. First, we said, look, instead of building a general purpose search engine, we are going to build a specialized search engine for specific vertical domains. So we specialized and narrowly specialized, took our search engine and specialized it for health search. We built a site called Right Health that took the same search technology, but was really good for any medical health related searches. Now that became one of the top medical websites in the US. Right. So we didn't have to compete with Google because we could brand ourselves as a health site, and that ended up doing really well for us at Cosmic. So sometimes you sort of end up in a difficult situation where maybe you even build a great product, but you can't get people to use it. Then you have to find ways of pivoting and repackaging the product to get the usage that you want to get.
Okay, sir. The last one that we have is what are some of the unique skills that we should have to become a good leader?
It's a good question. I think, as a good leader, you should be able to take input. You should be able to go reach out to everybody, both in your team and outside, to advisors and so on, and solicit input from them, but not listen to them. Right? You should sort of solicit input from everybody, take input from everybody, but you should be able to synthesize that and make your own decisions. Right? So this is why a lot of founders, one of the mistakes they make, at least first-time founders, is that they listen too much to their investors. So one of the things that I think great founders do is that they don't listen too much to their investors, right? So the founder is a founder, and the investor is a VC is a VC for a reason, right? A VC, if he could be a founder, wouldn't typically be a VC. That's right. So the founder mentality is different from an investor mentality. So what you want to do is you want to kind of listen to your VC or your investor, but not too much, right? So you have to listen, synthesize, and make your own decisions, even if you have to disagree with other people. That's one. And the second, I think, very important thing for a leader and for a company is that you have to be able to attract great talent, A+ people into to your company, right? So you have to attract talent that is smarter than you into the company, right? So in pretty much all our companies, we always try to hire people who are smarter than us. It's very important, and you have to have them be open with them telling you you're an idiot and all that stuff, right? So you have to be able to hire A+ talent, hire smarter people than you, and not have the ego that I have to be the smartest person in the room, right? That's super important as well.
Okay, sir. And one last question is, what would you suggest to gain some experience by working in a startup, or to start your own with the help of a co-founder and have experience by your own?
What are the two options? Sorry.
The first one is to gain some experience by working in a startup,
yeah,
or to start your own with the help of a co-founder and have experience by your own.
So look, these are not either or. You can do both. Look, it depends on when you get that great idea. Okay, you might get that great idea when you're a student at IIT, and you might find a great co-founder, and you can go start a company. Or I've also seen the case where, look, I don't have a great idea right now, even though I know I want to be a founder, and I haven't found a great co-founder I want to do it with. So in that case, it doesn't hurt to go work for 2 years for some company, right? So whether it's whether it's a big company or another startup, I would pick a venture funded company. So because you can learn a lot as opposed to some other kind of company, go work. And the nice thing about working in the startup ecosystem, working for either for Google or an Appna or whatever it is that you'll also meet other interesting people there who can become your co-founders, right? So because they're also there for the same reason typically. So you can meet other great people who can become your co-founders, and you also are exposed to how startups actually work when they grow, so you can learn a lot. So working for a couple of years before starting your company is also not a bad idea if you go to a good company where you can meet other people. I'll give you an example, right? There's a there are many good companies in India that have actually produced lots of good entrepreneurs from inside them. That have started companies that have done well. Many of the companies that we have invested in, the entrepreneurs actually worked at other venture funded startups and then left and started them. So that's a viable approach as well.
Okay, sir. With that, we have come to an end of the questions. So on behalf of IIT Madras,
thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Kimaya.
On behalf of IIT Madras, I would like to extend a hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Anand sir for this insightful and engaging session. It was indeed a very informative one, sir. Thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule, and I would also like to thank the audience for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Anand. Actually, one of the biggest advantages of being an IIT student is also the opportunity to, listen to seniors who talk to them, in a very casual and very, candid way, right? I think so. This is really a very informative session. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, Kaviraj and Shweta and Kimaya. Thanks for coordinating the question and answer session.
Thank you. Look forward.
Thank you, Anand.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.